I am 93 years old, and my wife left me for her therapist. Now, before you twist that into something it's not, before you picture some slick-talking con man who seduced a vulnerable woman on a leather couch, let me stop you right there. That's not what happened. That's the story I told myself for 30 years because it was easier. It was comfortable. It made me the victim. But I'm 93. I'll be dead soon. And I'm done being comfortable. I'm sitting here at my kitchen table, and there's a card in front of me. A small folded appointment card, the kind a receptionist would hand you on your way out. It's yellowed now. The crease down the middle is so old, the paper is nearly split in two. The print is faded, but I can still read it. Margaret Bellows, Tuesday, 3:15 p.m. My wife's name, a stranger's handwriting. I found this card again last week inside my old wallet. The wallet itself is falling apart, leather cracking like dried mud. But when I opened it, I swear I could still smell her. That faint trace of her perfume, buried in the lining, trapped there for decades, like a ghost that refused to leave, even though the woman herself had every reason to. She didn't leave me for a man. Let me be clear about that. She left me for the first person who actually listened to her. The fact that it happened to be her therapist is almost beside the point. She would have left me for a bartender, a bus driver, a stranger on a park bench, anyone. Anyone who did the one thing I never once thought I needed to do. Shut up and let her speak. I trained that woman to be silent. I didn't know I was doing it. That's not an excuse. That's the worst part. You want to know who I was? I was a provider. That's the word I used. That's the word my generation worshiped like gospel. I provided. I worked doubles at the plant through the 70s. I clawed my way into a foreman position by 82. Took every overtime shift they'd give me. Came home smelling like engine grease and sweat, and I wore that smell like a medal. I put a roof over her head, a bigger roof, eventually. Moved the family into a 4-bedroom colonial in 1979 and stood in the driveway with my hands on my hips like I just conquered something. And I believed. I mean, I truly believed in my bones that this was love. That a good husband was a useful husband. That if I kept the machine running, kept the money coming, kept the lawn mowed and the cars maintained and the gutters clean, I was doing my job. And my job was all she needed from me. When Margaret cried, I didn't hold her. I fixed things. She'd be upset about her mother's health, and I'd say, we'll get her a better doctor. She'd tell me she felt overwhelmed with the kids, and I'd say, so hire a babysitter. We can afford it now. She'd try to talk about how she was feeling, just feeling. Nothing to solve, nothing broken, just the quiet weight of being a person. And I would stand there like a mechanic staring at an engine with no warning lights on. If nothing's broken, what do you want me to do? When she got anxious, I told her to toughen up. When she got quiet at dinner, I figured she was tired. When she stopped telling me about her day, I thought we'd just reached that comfortable stage of marriage where you don't need to talk so much. I remember the sounds of that house. Dishes clanking, the television always buzzing in the next room, kids arguing over something stupid down the hallway. And underneath all of it, underneath the noise I let fill every room so I'd never have to sit in silence with my own wife, Margaret was disappearing. She was becoming invisible in her own home, and I didn't notice because the house still ran on time. I sit here now in a studio apartment that smells like canned soup and menthol rub. I ate dinner alone tonight. I eat dinner alone every night. The card sits on the table in front of me under a single bulb, and I can tell you exactly when everything broke. Not when she left, long before that. I can tell you the exact night I held the answer in my hand and threw it away. It was the fall of 1987, a Saturday. I remember because there was a football game on, and I was reaching into my wallet for cash. I was going to send one of the kids to the store for chips and beer. And when I pulled out a $10 bill, this card came with it. It must have slipped in there at some point, maybe fallen out of her purse near the counter where I always toss my wallet. I don't know how it got there, but there it was. Margaret Bellows, Tuesday, 3:15 p.m. A therapist's office address printed underneath. I stood in that kitchen and I read it twice. Our kitchen had this avocado green tile on the floor, the kind everyone had back then, and the fluorescent light overhead buzzed constantly. This low electrical hum that you stopped hearing after a while, but it was always there, always filling the silence, so you didn't have to notice there was any. The coffee pot sat on the warmer, and the coffee had been sitting there for hours. The smell of it, burnt and bitter. That's the smell I associate with the moment my marriage truly ended. Not perfume, not tears, burnt coffee. Margaret was standing at the sink with her back to me. The water was running, but her hands weren't moving. She was just standing there, letting the water pour over her still hands, staring out the window at nothing, the yard, the fence, the world she wasn't part of anymore. I held up that card like a piece of evidence, like a prosecutor. I said, "What the hell is this?" She didn't turn around right away. That pause. I'm 93 years old, and I have lived through a lot of long silences since then. But that pause, those 3 or 4 seconds where she just stood there with the water running over her hands, that pause still sits in my chest like a stone I swallowed and never passed. Then she turned around. She didn't look angry. That's what kills me. She looked tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind of tired a person gets when they've been screaming underwater for years and finally accepted that no one's coming. I said, "You're telling strangers our business? Some quack in an office knows more about this family than I do." And Margaret, my wife, This woman I'd slept beside for over 20 years. She looked at me with those exhausted brown eyes and said, very quietly, "I'm not telling them our business. I'm telling them mine, because you never wanted to hear it." The faucet dripped. That's the sound I remember. Not the football game in the next room, not the kids, the faucet. Drip, drip, drip. A slow, steady leak that I would have fixed if it were a plumbing problem. But it wasn't a plumbing problem. It was my wife telling me, plainly and without drama, that she had given up trying to reach me. And you know what I did? I scoffed. I actually scoffed. I shook my head like she was being ridiculous, and I shoved that card back into my wallet, and I walked into the living room and watched the game. The crowd roared through the television speakers. Some quarterback threw a touchdown. I ate chips from the bag and drank a beer and told myself she was being dramatic. She slept in the guest room that night. I didn't check on her. I didn't knock on the door. I didn't even think about it until the next morning. And by then she was already up making breakfast like nothing happened. And I let that be enough. I let the quiet mean everything was fine. I had the road map in my hand. I had the exact moment, the exact words, the exact chance to save my marriage. And I pocketed it like a gas station receipt and walked away. Margaret left on a Tuesday in 1991. A Tuesday. Probably on her way to her 3:15 appointment, or maybe right after it. I don't know. I was at work. When I came home, the house was half empty. Not ransacked, not destroyed. Methodical. She'd packed her things in boxes while I was gone. Neatly labeled, neatly stacked in the trunk of her sister's car. She left a note on the kitchen counter next to the coffee pot. I don't remember exactly what it said. Something about being sorry. Something about needing to be heard. She married the therapist 4 years later. I found out from my daughter, who told me carefully over the phone, like she was delivering a diagnosis. And I raged. I called him a predator. I called her naive. I called everyone a liar and a traitor. And I sat alone in that 4-bedroom colonial and let the gutters fill with leaves, because what was the goddamn point of cleaning them now? But here's the truth it took me another 20 years to admit. She didn't fall in love with her therapist because he was charming or handsome or clever. She fell in love with a man who sat across from her in a quiet room and said, "Tell me more." That's it. That's all he did that I wouldn't. He gave her the space to exist out loud. I kept this card in my wallet for over 30 years. I never took it out. I never threw it away. I think some part of me knew what it was. Not an appointment card, an autopsy report. The precise date and time I let my wife die inside my house while her body kept going through the motions. Now I sit here, 93 years old. This apartment has no photos on the walls. I took them all down years ago because looking at them was like reading a book where I'm the villain and I didn't know it until the last chapter. My children visit me 4 times a year, once a season, like I'm a chore on a calendar. They're polite. They bring food. They ask about my health. They do not ask about my feelings, and I can't blame them because I never taught them how. The apartment smells like dust and menthol and the faint chemical sweetness of canned vegetable soup. The card sits here on the table, her name staring up at me, and I realize her name in faded ink is more present in my life right now than any living human being. The silence I forced on her, the silence I demanded without ever saying the words, that silence followed me home. It moved in. It sleeps in every room. It eats with me. It will die with me. And I deserve it. Now, you, you, the one watching this right now, I need to talk to you for a minute, and I'm not going to be gentle about it, because nobody was gentle with me, and it still wasn't enough. You're watching this on your phone, aren't you? You're in bed, or on the couch, or sitting on the toilet, and your wife is somewhere in the next room, or your husband, or the person you swore to love. And when's the last time you asked them something, a real something, not what's for dinner, or did you pay the electric bill, but something real, and then shut your mouth long enough to actually hear the answer? When's the last time you sat with them in their pain, without trying to fix it, without trying to rush past it, without making it about you? Stop performing as a husband. Stop performing as a wife. Stop checking boxes. Stop thinking that showing up is the same thing as being present. Because I showed up every single day for 23 years, and my wife still had to pay a stranger $60 an hour to feel like a human being. She's not going to scream for your attention forever. Do you hear me? She will not keep banging on that door. One day she's just going to stop. And you fool, you're going to stand there in the quiet and mistake it for peace. You're going to think, good, we're past it. Everything's fine now. And by the time you realize the silence isn't peace, but surrender, she'll already have the boxes packed. Ask her tonight, put the phone down, walk into whatever room she's in, and ask her what she's carrying that she hasn't told you. And when she starts to speak, you do nothing. You don't fix, you don't defend, you don't interrupt. You sit there and you let her voice fill the room, because her voice is the only thing that will keep that room from becoming as empty as mine. I'm 93 years old. I'm sitting alone under a bare light bulb, holding a dead woman's appointment card. Margaret passed 6 years ago. I didn't go to the funeral. I wasn't invited. Don't wait until you're holding the evidence of everything you destroyed and calling it a keepsake. Fold the card. Put it away. The wallet closes, and everything closes with it. I'm telling you this because nobody told me. and that's the only thing I have left to give.